you should do before you finish your manuscript. Before you even have a book completed, you should start working on these things. And these are the things that I did not do. The first thing is make a website. Do you know my very first fans had to track me down through Amazon and say, are you that Lynn Hardy? Is this, did you write this book? Where's the second one? And I'm like, oh, maybe I should make a website. Okay, note to self, make a website before you publish your book. There are some great places to find a free website. Does anybody have a website right now? Very, very good. I know about Webhost, 000webhost.com. That's where my blog, where one of my sites is. The other one is GoDaddy.com and WordPress. Anybody else have any free sites that work well?
There's one called Weebly, and there's also one called Yola.
Okay.
You can set it up to have it with their domain, so it'll be like your name.weebly.com, or you can pay to have that promoted in the
Okay.
There's also Moonfruits.
Moonfruits.com. Okay. Anybody else with suggestions for free websites? You can also just Google that and you'll come up with a bunch of different sites. But you want to make sure it's a reputable site preferably with recommendations of people who've been on there a while. Some of these are fly-by-night companies and they'll crash if they get too many hits really, a lot, and it's just not worth your effort. So do make sure that it's a good website company. Let's see, the next thing you need to do is you need to locate your audience. Does everybody have an idea of what their audience is for your book? The books that you're writing. Can we have some examples of what kind of books we have in here? Anyone? Fantasy?
Oh yeah, sci-fi.
Sci-fi. Do we have any romance writers in here?
Kind of.
Locating your audience can be a very big key because you have to know where to find them. If people don't hear about your book, they're not going to be able to buy it. And being self-published, you're going to have to find your readers. Okay, so I kind of really do need to know what kind of authors we have. I know of a few forums that are really great. Let's see, do I have them on here? Goodreads.com and Kindleboards.com. These are great places that have subcategories. They'll have a romance forum, they'll have a fantasy forum, they'll have a science fiction forum. And you can go into these chat rooms, these old places, and the thing is, they don't like self-published authors, at least that talk about themselves. So there's some unwritten rules in this forum world, and if you say anything about your book, they really slam you. So they think that you would be biased against your own work. Of course you think it's genius, it's your work. So your opinion does not count. So your job in these forums is merely to go there and chat. You are supposed to talk about other authors that you like, talk about other things, try and follow the guidelines. They usually have them posted at the beginning of the forum. In a little group, guidelines, come introduce yourself. So you'll want to follow the guidelines and be respectful. As an author, you're always on show, wherever you are, so even online. So be respectful. If somebody criticizes you, don't get smart with them. Very best behavior. It's very difficult at times. And like I said, do not talk about your book overly much. About once every 10 posts is considered acceptable. If you throw in a remark about, oh, I've done this in my book, or my book is kind of like that, that's acceptable. More than once every 10 times, they're not going to want to hear from you, and they're going to kind of give you bad remarks all over. So, has anybody like? Well, this is great for you. If you are a gamer and you like to talk about gaming, stuff like that, go to the gaming forums.
Well, I know it's like at StarterStory.net, which is primarily a Star Wars, Star Trek fanfic forum. They also have, I think they call it a spot for original fiction. So.
Exactly. So you need to find out where your audience is. If you think Star Trek fans are going to love your book, Google Star Trek. Go to Star Trek forums. Talk about Star Trek stuff. And then every once in a while, drop in a little keynote about yours. Make yourself interesting to them, and they'll want to know more about you. Most forums will allow you to sign your post with your name, the title of your book, and maybe even a link to your website. At each forum area, there will be a place to make a profile. Profile is very important. You want to put a picture of you or a picture of your book and lots of information. Make it interesting for them to read. Link it to your website, to your blog. You want to network all over the web about you, who you are, and your work. Does this make sense? Are there any questions so far? Does this sound like something that would be important? Does anybody know why this is important?
You need to kind of build up like an image of yourself, just so when people start to get familiar with your books, they can be like, oh, we know about this.
Exactly. It's called, if you're doing short stories online, another thing is to blog online, but then you have to go out and get people and direct them to your blog. So if you can start a blog that gets really popular, that's also really great. And that's called having a readership. You have so many people who hit your website every month, every week, and that's a readership. And so even if you don't want to self-publish, if you've done this and you have a good readership and you have a good product, you're more likely to get picked up by a mainstream publisher. So this is something important for every writer to do. A blog, talking about whatever you want to talk about, or you can do reviews at Amazon. If you can review other books and get people interested in your reviews because you're doing a really good review and they like them, then they'll be looking for more reviews. And then when your book comes out, they'll go, oh look, they've written a book too, and they'll check out your book. But let me give you a warning about that. Don't give negative reviews. As an author, you're not allowed to say anything negative, ever, in public about another author's work. You never know who their friend is. You never know who their friend will be. You never know how many fans they have. And so it's really considered bad form. Yeah. Yes?
Plus, like attorneys, you don't know who attorney they know.
Yeah, but slander isn't so much an issue as just building a bad reputation and getting bad remarks on your work because you criticize somebody they like. And the last thing you want is a lot of bad reviews. Okay, let's see what else we have on here.
We've got a question.
Oh, sure, yes.
What would you say the difference between a harsh critique and a negative post would be?
This is a very fine line to walk. A good critique should contain both negative and positive. But as an author, if you are overly negative, it's very, very bad for your publicity. So my rule of thumb is I put several good things and maybe one thing they can work on. And I try and put it in the best possible way and then end with saying, but in all, it was a really great book. Does that make sense? So think like you're talking to a small child and you don't want to hurt their feelings. And consider it in that form. Do we have any more questions about locating your audience? Does anybody have an idea of how they can locate their audience? Another good way to do it I heard this on a business seminar, some famous billionaire business guy, and he said a great way to get your audience is find something that's related to your work in a roundabout way. Like if your book is fantasy and you like D&D stuff, make a site about D&D, reviewing D&D stuff or talking about D&D stuff, and then you'll get D&D readers coming to your site to look at that. Oh, and by the way, and here's my book. Does that make sense? It's kind of a little bit of a bait and a switch, but you have to get people interested in who you are because nobody's going to do it for you. It's your job because you're the publisher. Okay, so are you ready to see what you have to do to actually publish your work? I hope these figures did not scare you. They're very realistic, but remember they're estimates. Everything is negotiable considering how lucky you are, how much work you do in finding the right person. You could find this a lot cheaper or it could be a lot more expensive. So the first thing you have to do is, before you do anything, is get your manuscript edited. A professional edit is a must. Does anybody know the reputation self-published authors have? Can anybody tell me something negative, self-published authors?
Grammar bad.
Exactly. That's exactly it. They are known for having the worst editing on the planet. You'll find it in every chat room. Yeah, that self-published book, you know, the first couple chapters were okay, and then, you know, it was almost unreadable because of typos, because of grammar. So we, as self-published, have a horrible reputation. So please, do not add to this. Get a professional edit. A professional edit isn't my brother, mother, sister, English teacher, or professor. That's an okay edit. That's not a professional edit. A professional edit is somebody who makes a living at this. It's because they will not see the story, they will see the words. When you get wrapped up in the story, you don't pay as much attention to the words. So professional edit is a must. I've told other people, and I'll tell you, a shortcut if you don't have the funds for a really good one, have it done by 6 or 7 different people, and at least one English or semi-professional editor. Maybe they've done some editing on the side. Then do a Kindle version, and you can make a lot of money. Kindle really fast. You don't have to go through the publication costs, and you can build up enough money to get that really good edit. But save the money for that really good edit. Okay, the next thing. Oh, well, and everybody knows an editor, just because they have editor after their name does not an editor make, right? They should have credentials. If they can't point you to books they've edited that are good books, that have got great reviews, don't pay much for them. A couple $100, okay, that might be okay. More than that, find someone else. A great thing is finding a struggling editor, and then they'll do it for next to nothing and just for the credit of having it done. Yes?
I noticed that if you go to like a student who's in a master's program who's had an English degree, that's also helpful.
Yes, but remember, writing is a process, it's a learning process. The longer you do it, the better you get at it. Editing is a lot like that too. There's a lot of unwritten rules out there, you know, and the more they do it, the better they'll get at it. So that's a great start, and like I said, if you're hurting for funds, do that 2 or 3 times. You know, it's better to have more sets of eyes on it. And then do the Kindle version, and then look for an accredited editor that you can get it done well with. Let's see. The next thing that you'll need to do is cover. Anybody having a cover done yet? Has anybody been this far? How do you like your cover?
I do.
You do?
But it doesn't follow some of your suggestions, like the title taking up the width of the book. It's a children's book, so it's a wide book.
And you're right, children's
So-
books do have a different standard.
Yeah.
And I'm not familiar with those standards, that's why I recommend calling Borderline.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Angela Mueser, M-U-E-S-E-R,
Okay.
At-
I took down
at Borderline. And she's got a couple of children's books out, so she would be able to help you a little more in that area. But a good way to do it is just to research. Go on Kindle, find the best-selling children's books, not Kindle books. Look at their covers. Do a little survey yourself. You're welcome. And then, let's see. So I hope that most of these are self-explanatory. You know, the popular size for self-published is the 8 by, hold on just a second. 8.5 by 5.5, or 8.5 by 5. So the reason why these are the most common is because it's the cheapest. When you get those little pocket-sized ones, they're actually going to cost you just about as much, and these can sell for a much higher price. So this is the most common. The hardcover ones are very expensive to publish, and that's why self-published people don't do it. So this is about it. Let's see. And the title should take up the width of the cover. That's very, very true. Okay. This book, see? The title does not take up the entire top of the cover. And I was told by some professional cover artists from Tor that was one of the main problems with this. That makes it look self-published instead of professional. So make sure that you have the title as large as possible. Then you also want your name as large as possible on the bottom, or mix it up, your name on the top, you know, the cover on the bottom, whatnot. But make your name very, very big. You're proud of it, it's your book, your name on it, and you're going to stick to it. Let's see, and the biggest complaint on Kindle, oh, go ahead.
Well, of course, yeah, with the, after you publish a book and people like it, you want them to connect it to you.
Exactly.
And so if you make a second book or a sequel, they won't connect that. I mean, this was kind of my pet peeve of some like promotions, like for manga, they did a new type, they would almost never, maybe just in the text, mention the author. I mean, I didn't want stopping, if someone just told me that Inuyasha was about this, you know, girl who goes back to time and all that, I wouldn't be that interested, but Rumiko Takahashi, I'm hooked.
Exactly. And I always thought this was a little vain, you know, I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm not a big name yet, why should my name be huge out in lights? But it needs to be that way to look professional. Did you have a
I
question?
think my comment is similar to that. I was told by an author once that the difference between famous and unfamous is your name is bigger than your title.
Exactly, exactly. You want to, when people see your book on Amazon and other places,
Yeah.
you want them to think of it as a mainstream book. You don't want them to have any question that this isn't going to be right up there to the standards they are expecting. And that's what I'm trying to get across, is we want to be, as self-published, the same standards, the same quality, and we want to be seen the same as those other published, big 5 published authors. That's from the Fat 5. Anybody know the Fat 5 publishers?
Random House?
We'll go in that to next time, and then the next panel.
Oh.
Random House is one, yes. Okay, so ISBN. Anybody know what an ISBN is? You have one, yes. It's a barcode.
Good. Oh, that's right.
And so, and it's not only the barcode, they'll charge you extra for that. The ISBN, but that's the total price for both of them together. It's the barcode and the ISBN. The ISBN is just the number that says, this is mine. And it's a 13-digit number that goes on this everywhere. And that's just as good as copyright. This is your product, it's your ISBN.
It's international, right?
It is national, yes.
International.
No.
Oh, okay.
One thing I learned is the first book was done without the ISBN, and the second book was, but when we purchased the IBNs for the second book, we bought 5. And so we got stickers made for the first book, and we have 3 more for free unpublished works.
And if you can put out the little few extra dollars, it's not that much more to get 5. It's like 200 or 250 instead of 130, and you'll get a whole slew of them. Yeah. So depending on how tight your budget is, if you're planning a series of 3 or 4, you might as well go ahead and buy the pack. So let's see, and then formatting. Believe it or not, your books have to be formatted before they go to print. And this is not included in a lot of prices. It's kind of like, oh yeah, here's the price for your book. Oh, you do have it formatted, don't you? And then they slap you with the extra $150 to get it formatted. But it's not that hard to do once you learn the regulations. There's a great place to learn it. It's called CreateSpace. They have some instructions on there. It's an Amazon self-publishing company. But the great part about it is they give the information to everyone on what the format should be for publishing. And so you can go through their rules and you can format it yourself if you want to, instead of paying somebody to do it. Any questions about formatting? You have to format not only for the book and the book layout. The Kindle is something completely different. A Kindle layout has to be done just right, or else it gets all garbled in the translation. But the great part about it is that's your only expense as a Kindle, is your formatting. And that's relatively cheap. You can do that yourself. They have a guideline on the website that I have listed here, the DETP Amazon.com site. That was really hard to find, by the way. Maybe it's just me and dysfunction on the internet. That's why I included the link for you. That is actually a great place to go because they'll tell you exactly how to format it in whichever program you're using. And then you can upload it to Kindle and you're good to go. But you'll want to have your cover done, and so you can put your cover next to the book, because nobody will buy it if the cover does not look professional on Kindle. So you'll have your formatting and your cover cost, and your ISBN. Those are the 3 costs for Kindle. And the 3 things that you'll need to do. Any questions about Kindle publishing? It's really easy to do, and it is the biggest profit maker for a self-published author. So finally, after you get all of these other things taken care of, you're ready to go to print. Printing can take anywhere from 3 weeks to 6 weeks, depending on your printer and how well set up it is. If there's any problems, they'll be emailing you back, hopefully. Some of the less reputable places will just print them to you and say, here they are, this is what you told us to print, and then you've got these books that you can't sell. So I would look locally for a printing company. I found one in Boise that does it cheaper than CreateSpace or any place else. And that is a great place, or a great thing to do, is support your local printers. Any questions about printing? Like I said, the printing cost is approximate. It's approximately my 400-page book, $5.50 for every book before you print them out. That's for groups of 100. If you buy 200, 300, price goes down. If you buy 1,000, it's a lot less. But can you really afford to, shuck out $3,000 for 300 books? So that's all dependent on you. And there are some publishing companies out there that will do incredibly small runs of 50 books, and they won't cost much more. And so if you're on a limited budget, the number of printout can really vary. Just check the companies where you're at. Then the next cost is distribution. Does anybody know about distribution? Can anybody tell me anything about distribution at all? Okay, that's where I was. When I printed out my first book, I knew nothing about distribution. And then came the learning curve. If you hire somebody to distribute your book for you, and you have to have a distributor to get into Barnes & Nobles, to Borders, to any of the chain stores. You have to have a distributor. That distributor is going to charge you 15%. Some of them do it of the cover price, some of them do it of the net. Most of them do it of the cover price. So that's why the price of these books are so high, because in order to sell them and make money, most of it's going to go to somebody else. 15% off the top to the distributor. After that, Borders and Barnes & Noble, they take 40 to 50%, depending on who your distributor is. So you lose 65% of the cover price, and you have had to print and ship the books. But don't get discouraged. We're not done yet. That's just one of the distribution areas. To get distributed, not only do you have to have a distributor, you also have to be listed in Baker & Taylor and Ingram. That's really tricky. They don't like self-published, and they will not list you. They'll list you as self-published, and then they'll charge every bookstore who orders you like $2 a book. And the bookstores won't order you because they don't want to pay $2 extra for a self-published book. There are ways to get around this. The way I got around it was I became an imprint under another publisher, and he submitted my book with all his. Because in order not to be considered self-published, you have to have 10 titles in your publishing company. So you can get a bunch of people together. Sorry, speaking not my strong suit. Bunch of people together, form a publishing company, and submit to Baker & Taylor and Ingram to be listed. And then, because you have 10 titles, you can be considered a publishing company, and they'll list you. Otherwise, they will not, and not without charging an exorbitant fee. Matter of fact, CreateSpace, Lulu, all these other small publishing companies, they say, oh yes, and we can list you with Ingram and Baker & Taylor. And they'll list you as self-published. But for an extra $400 a year, they'll list you as regular. So you gotta watch these companies out there that want to help you self-publish. Sometimes it's much easier to do it yourself. So any questions about distribution? There are some places out there. Hastings is one, Borders is another, that will let you do a book signing in their store and even have a couple of books on consignment as long as you come in to do a book signing. So you can come in, you can spend 4 hours, you'll sell anywhere between 6 and 20 books. The most I ever sold was 40, but I hear that's kind of unusual for self-published. Then they'll give you commission on those, and then they'll have your book on the shelf. When those sell, they'll also send you a check. Be warned of Borders. They have been having financial issues. My publisher said it's been 9 months and he hasn't seen his check for commission. So there's always that as well.
How do you get around when I self-published, I had a name of a company?
Mhm.
Partner.
Yes.
So we have 2 books under that name. That company no longer exists. So now there's no company by that name. There's 2 books. I was gonna write 8 more to make 10.
Yeah.
Do the self-publishing thing. So how do you get around the first 2 that aren't under a viable name anymore?
What exactly did you do to put them under that name, and why isn't that company viable?
Well, because it disbanded. I mean, it was a company that my partner and I had.
I
And
see.
we separated our companies, and so got a new name, I got a new name, and
Did you sign rights? Did you sign a form signing rights of your book over to that company?
probably,
Well,
well,
mainstream publishers will send you a contract, and in that contract it will state that they have the rights to this book, and it'll usually have an escape clause, like if it's been out of print for 3 or 5 years, the rights revert back to the author. Always look for that clause, but that's the clause you want in there.
okay, in this case, the author
Mhm.
turned it all over to me, the illustrator.
Okay, if you've got all the rights, it's a new game. You can still republish under any publishing company.
Okay,
So you technically still have the rights to it, and that doesn't make a difference at all.
okay.
Now, publishing them in a bookstore is another tricky matter, because your ISBN will be registered to that company, and all your profits will go to that company. So the checks, when they mail out, that's who they're going to mail it to, is that company address.
How do you fix that?
You can alter your ISBN. You just go, you'll have to Google it, but you can change the information on your ISBN. I think it costs you 15 or 20 bucks.
Okay,
And then you have your new company where it goes.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions about ISBN? Okay. Or that wasn't ISBN, that was bookstores. Okay, yes. Okay, bookstores will take 40 to 50% of your profits. And that's off the cover price. So, if anybody can do the math? This book sells for $15.95. If the bookstore takes 40% and they take 15%, that's 65. So how much is being made on this book? And then you have the publishing cost, the printing cost, and the mailing of the book. So an author will generally make $1 to $2 off of every book sold in a bookstore, if that. And that's why the best thing to do is sell through Amazon. Unfortunately, Amazon really is harsh on it. They take 70%. 70% of the cover price goes to Amazon. So on your website, remember that website we talked about? Have your book for sale there, linked to a PayPal account. Then you make all the profits for yourself, and you don't have to give 70% to Amazon. So that's why you'll see books for sale at authors' websites. It saves them 70%. Okay, and now the other thing on Amazon, when you list your book on Amazon, which everyone will, you'll have to fill out your author bio page. Make sure that it's nice and complete and full. Has a link to your blog and your website so people can get there. So this is a very important information that people can read about you. And also, you can link all your books together so they can find your next book in the series at the Amazon website. And if you list it a little bit cheaper at your website and give free shipping, they might just buy it there.
Well, that was part of my question. How do you get your readers to bypass Amazon so you're making the money? I mean, I know that, so I would rather go to you and buy your book because I know what goes on.
You know, that is something I have not yet solved. Unfortunately, I'm not doing many sales off my website. I think it's because, well, A, my website is having technical issues. I was told it wasn't loading properly on Google Chrome, so I think people aren't trusting it. But that's the big thing. People don't trust it. You know, who are you? Do I really want to put my credit card number in this site? So, not really sure how to help on that one. I just know that if you can generate interest there, it's a much better way to go.